Welcome everyone to Module 3 of the Introduction to AI Tools for Teaching and Learning. Let's get started with some of our goals for today's lesson. Today's lesson will focus on the various strategies that you can use to detect AI-generated content. We'll start by emphasizing our very human strategies for detecting AI-generated content without the use of additional software tools. This will include a review of the red flags to look for when making a determination as to whether or not the content was created by humans or generative AI tools. We will also discuss several software tools that can be used to detect AI-generated content and the limitations of these tools. At the end, we'll wrap up by discussing a few of the strategies we can use when approaching students who may have inappropriately used AI in their training or course assessments. So let's dive in, starting with detecting AI-generated text. When we talk about detecting generative AI outputs, there are two methods to do that. You can detect it yourself after a bit of training, or you can rely on some kind of AI tool to detect AI content. You may also choose to employ both methods or neither, depending on your subject matter, modality, and your teaching or instructional design approach in general. For now, let's talk about some strategies you can use as a human to detect AI-generated text. The first strategy is to practice using AI to generate text-based content. This may seem a little counterintuitive, but truly this is my favorite strategy because the more you use generative AI, the more you will be confident in recognizing the indicators of its use. In the same way that you get used to the way your learners write, you'll get used to the patterns associated with AI-generated text. For example, you'll find that generative AI text tends to be vague with a lot of fluff, which just refers to meaningless, repetitive text. Words like crucial and vibrant, moreover, and arguably will show up in strange ways. You'll also notice that the unique human voice of the author is missing. Voice is hard to describe until you notice it's missing. It's what makes up the tone of the writing and what gives you a sense of your learner's personality. This can come from sentence structure, vocabulary, and their overall style of writing. You'll see what I mean when you start to go through the simulations in the lesson below this video, because you will experiment with detecting AI writing and patterns will emerge. When it comes to detecting AI in learner-written assessments, it may be valuable to be able to compare the submission in question with another submission that you are certain the learner wrote, like an in-class writing assignment. Another red flag to pay attention to is if you notice that the writing voice very suddenly changes midway through the written assessment. That may be an indicator that one or more of the paragraphs were copied and pasted from an AI tool. Other clues include overconfidence in the tone or suspiciously astute observations. I once had a student who wrote a paper on their career goals and included information about Bayesian statistical modeling that had zero relevance to the topic at hand. Sometimes knowing too much about a topic can be an indicator of inappropriate generative AI use. Another red flag to look for, particularly when it comes to academic writing samples, is the appearance of citations that refer to sources that do not actually exist. AI text generators have a tendency to invent sources that sound and look plausible but are quote-unquote hallucinations. This is the word that the industry is using to refer to something that is totally made up, that the computer is sort of imagining, if you will. So checking your learner's sources will be increasingly important as more students use generative AI for writing tasks. In addition to the strategies we covered for honing your AI detection skills, there are several tools that can help. However, I strongly encourage you to develop your own skills and not rely too heavily on the automated AI detection tools, as they just aren't the most reliable. You'll see what I mean when you start to generate text and put it through AI detectors for this module's assignment. Experience in this case can absolutely be the best teacher. Even in the last few months, several AI detection tools have been removed as they resulted in a high number of false positives and, frankly, lackluster detection. This means that running a student essay, for example, through an AI detector might turn out to be a false positive, which can have serious consequences for the student and for your relationship with them. This is particularly pronounced when it comes to English language learners, which can present a major equity issue. We'll talk more about how to approach learners in a few minutes, but here are a few AI detection tools that you might consider using as just one part of your AI detection process. Grammarly recently came out with a free AI detection tool, and CopyLeaks is one of the better-known tools as well. Both of these have limited free usage as of this recording in 2024, but these things are changing so quickly that your best bet is to look at the links below this video, as links are much faster to update and keep this course up to date. Other common tools with limited free usage right now include GPT-0, which was developed by a Princeton student, and DetectGPT, which was produced by a student at Stanford University. These are good options to use when you suspect a learner has inappropriately used AI to generate text for an assignment. Other tools include Originality.ai, Smodin, and Quillbot. Again, this particular topic and the available tools are changing so quickly that you'll want to rely on the links in this module's instructional materials, and do not hesitate to report out to your facilitator if a link is no longer working. This helps us to stay on top of content changes. Another one of the more well-known tools is Turnitin. It's worth noting that when Turnitin released their AI detection tool, they estimated a false positive rate of about 1%. But within a few months, they updated that to be closer to 8% for false positives. And this is a premium tool. Many institutions already have a Turnitin license, so you might just have access to it through your institution. But again, I use this more as a cautionary tale. In the same way, OpenAI had their own, what they called the AI text classifier. And this was an AI detection tool as well. And when this tool was released, it also boasted a low false positive rate. But after more study, it was found to be far less accurate than anticipated. So not only did it not necessarily detect when AI was used, but it also did sometimes detected that it was being used when it wasn't. Again, those are the false positives, and we'll talk more about that too. Again, this is why I don't recommend using any of these tools as a foolproof way to detect when generative AI has been used. This is but one small tool that can start a conversation with your students. In addition, there's a lot of what's referred to as humanizers, which have emerged onto the market. Tools like Phrasely.ai and Undetectable.ai, and these tools are designed to take AI-generated text and make them sound more human by increasing their perplexity and burstiness. Now, these terms refer to the randomness of the text and how the text is written with words in short bursts rather than being evenly, mechanically, distributed throughout the passage. The point here is that using AI text detection tools is just limited. We must be aware of those limitations as educators before designing and implementing policies that simply won't work. The reality is that the better you become at detecting AI yourself, the more effective you will be when it comes to the conversations you'll need to have with the students who you find may be using AI tools inappropriately. It's important to note that AI-generated images and even videos have become frighteningly realistic. There is AI that can create the sound of voices and even mimic singing voices, which is a huge problem for the music industry. There are videos of political leaders seemingly saying things that are outrageous, more so than normal anyway. And there are concerns related to what's called deepfakes, which are images of people doing things that are photorealistic, but totally made up, or even images of people that don't really exist. Certainly, it will be important to be able to spot AI-generated images in your classes, especially if you teach a class with design or art deliverables. But because of the far-reaching implications, this is the kind of phenomenon that has broad world consequences and may be worth educating your learners about as well. There are several resources for you to play with below this video, so make sure to take the time to explore everything. These may be items you want to share. So now let's talk about strategies for detecting AI-generated images. Just like we did with detecting AI-generated text, we'll first talk about human strategies for detecting AI images, and then we'll go over the AI detection tools that can be used to support those efforts. So when you're viewing images that you think may be AI-generated, the first strategy is to seek out anomalies. This is especially true when looking at images that have humans in them. You may notice mismatched earrings or eyes that are missing or features of differing size and placement. You may also notice images with too many fingers, teeth, arms, or legs, or there might be otherwise incongruous elements like patches of skin that may seem painted in part, or eyeglasses that blend into the sides of faces. Or in the background, there might be text that looks more like Elvish than any recognizable written language or other surreal scenery that defies logic. Although these tools are getting better all the time, these are still legitimate red flags that are worth paying attention to. You will see many samples of these types of red flags when reviewing the additional resources in this lesson. And one more thing I want to draw your attention to is the DALL-E watermark. In this sample DALL-E image, you'll notice a small colorful mark in the lower right corner. Here it is, a bit bigger. Currently, only DALL-E includes watermarks on their generated images, but in the future it may be that the others follow suit. So now let's talk about detecting AI-generated images with the different software tools that are available. Again, the better you are at detecting AI without relying on these tools, the better off you will be, but it's always good to have additional resources. The good news is that the tools are pretty straightforward to use in that you just upload the image in question and get a result pretty instantly. So I'm going to show you how one works just now. The links to each one of these detectors are available just below this video lesson, and remember, these links may change as the technology changes. For this demonstration, we're going to work with the Illuminati AI detector. So here I have an image that we created in the last video. It's a DALL-E image. It's a realistic Rembrandt-inspired portrait of an otter. So I'm going to take this and drag it. So I have this over on another screen. I'm just going to drop it right here where it says to drop the file. And you see we have a very instant result. And it says AI probability is 69.6%. Sometimes we have a simple yes or no answer. Sometimes we have a percentage like here. Now it's worth considering. Now this is 100% AI generated. Okay, so even here on this detector, it's only showing 69%. So again, you can see that these image detectors aren't going to be 100% accurate, but it is a space where you can start a conversation with your students. It may be that you allow for some AI generated content and require your students to edit the image. And in this case, again, you may say that this is too high of a percentage, so it might open up a conversation between you and the student. A lot of what you do with this information will come down to the policies that you enact in your learning environments. So the more you experiment with these tools, the more knowledgeable you're going to be, and you'll be better prepared to create policies that are enforceable and that will work for you and your subject matter. So in addition to this one, again, there are several others that are going to be linked in the module. More are coming available all the time. So do refer to the resources below this video for the most up-to-date AI detectors. And please report to your facilitator if you have any issues accessing the AI detection tool. These things go up and down all the time. So I've mentioned false positives a few times throughout this presentation, but it does bear repeating. Many AI detectors out there will note that there is a likelihood of false positive results, which makes sense because these tools are designed to mimic real and natural human creations, right? So the other problem is that these are technically original works. It's one thing to detect a perfect copy as plagiarism, or detecting certain sections of perfect copies. But it's quite another thing to detect when something incorporates virtually infinite pieces of data to create something that has not existed before. So again, I'll refer to the Turnitin AI detector as an example. When it came out in 2023, the company estimated that there was a 1% false positive rate, which was later shown to be closer to 8%. And OpenAI's own detection tool, the OpenAI Text Classifier, which has since been discontinued, initially showed 8% of the positives to be false, which was also found to be inaccurate with an even higher false positive rate. What's even more troubling is that these tools tend to be biased toward non-native English speakers. This is a huge equity issue. And the reality is that AI detectors deal in probability rather than proof. This is why the results of these tools can be useful as a starting point in a conversation with your students, or at least as one piece of information that can be useful. It is not on its own 100% reliable evidence that plagiarism has in fact occurred. This is why the emphasis in this course is to encourage you to experiment with these tools, because your own ability to recognize AI patterns in writing and image generation will equip you to recognize the signs of AI. So the question remains, what do we do once we have detected the inappropriate use of AI in our students' submissions? So once we detect the unauthorized or otherwise inappropriate use of AI by our students, we must consider our approach carefully. Much of this is related to our own preparation because our actions may be guided by the policies we've set and the way that we've communicated these policies in our courses. But even if you don't have an explicit AI policy, an existing plagiarism policy can cover some of those bases. We'll talk more about policymaking in the next module, but for now, here are some of the steps that you can take if you suspect the inappropriate use of AI by students in the classroom. First, take the time to thoroughly review the submission. It can be tempting to discard the work when you feel that AI has been used to create it, but remember, false positives are incredibly common. Spending the time to review the work will help you determine the likelihood of AI use in the submission, as well as the amount of AI that might have been used. I've had students who have written nearly the entirety of their own essays, but fed their content into an AI tool to have it write the introduction. This was a very obvious voice change, and if I had read the first few sentences and determined that 100% of their submission was AI, I would have felt justified, but it wouldn't have necessarily been entirely fair to the learner in that case. So this is also where our own willingness to prepare feedback is so critical. Our students have to understand the limitations of these tools. And if the use of AI is not outright banned based on your subject matter and teaching philosophy, then just remember that some of the patterns in AI-generated writing are repetitiveness, vagueness, and the confident assertion of incorrect information. It may be that an AI-generated paper submission scores low on its own lack of merit. In that situation, providing detailed feedback regarding the revisions that are required can teach our students a valuable lesson that the content of the paper is more important than its grammatical smoothness. If and when the time comes to confront your students, remember that this is a conversation. Engage your student in a discussion. Try to avoid an accusatory tone. Regardless of whether the learner actually used AI in their submission or not, they will likely be defensive and upset at the suggestion that they did. So consider asking questions like, what kind of research did you use to write the paper? Or how long did it take you to write the paper? Is this the first draft? Or did the student spend enough time editing? And how did they write the paper? Did they use something like Google Docs, for example, which can record their timestamps as they work? These questions can reveal the use of generative AI without coming off as an accusation that can damage your relationship with your learners. Remember, this can be a learning opportunity for your students. And this is, there are some great resources in this module about the reasons that students will cheat on their assignments. It's important to consider those reasons and just to approach them gently, especially if there's a false positive that allows both you and the student to save face a little bit. So one more consideration here is whether there might be time to revise your assignment. There are many ways to revise an assignment to reduce the likelihood that students will use generative AI inappropriately. One of those strategies is to scaffold your assignments throughout the course. So consider requiring drafts or literature reviews. Are there other low stakes opportunities for your students to build their own written deliverables? This may even be an opportunity to actively integrate generative AI into your curriculum and the assignment itself. Could a generative AI tool serve as a first-level peer reviewer even? Check out the additional resources for more suggestions, and remember, your peers have a wealth of knowledge and experience and ideas. We've discussed quite a bit about strategies for detecting AI-generated content. We also discussed methods for approaching your students when you suspect they've used AI inappropriately. Your task is now to experiment. In the lesson, you will find several reading materials, additional videos, and even a few simulations that will help you practice detecting the use of AI in various types of content. Next, you will engage with a quiz to check your knowledge, and then you will get some more practice by using AI to generate content, and then you will run that AI content through the detection tools so you can get a feel for the accuracy of the tools. In the reflective activity, you will discuss the process as well as any strategies you find yourself using that help you along the way. This work will help prepare you to have those discussions with your students and will hopefully give you confidence as you begin to think about the policies you will enact in your classes. As you practice using these tools, feel free to take screenshots of the final products if you would like to share these with your colleagues. And if you discover new tools, don't hesitate to share those as well. Remember, AI and AI detection is changing on a daily basis. So the more you uncover, the richer the discussions will be for you and your peers.